At the start of 2010, the music industry was still recovering. The 2000s had been chaotic. Piracy had shaken record labels, CD sales had collapsed, and no one was quite sure what the future looked like. For years, the industry had relied on physical sales, CDs, retail stores, and tightly controlled distribution. But as the internet grew, the system began to fall apart. File sharing platforms like Napster and LimeWire had already changed how people accessed music. And even though many of those services were shut down, the damage had been done. Consumers had gotten used to free, instant access, and the industry was scrambling to catch up. But one thing was clear: pop music was becoming more digital, more global, and more immediate. Technology was no longer just a tool, it was becoming the foundation of how music was created, distributed, and consumed. Artists were beginning to realize that their audience wasn't just local or even national anymore. It was worldwide, and leading the charge into the new decade were a few defining forces. Lady Gaga wasn't just popular, she was inescapable. From the moment she stepped onto the scene, she brought something different. Her approach to pop wasn't just about sound, it was about the spectacle. Every performance, every outfit, every music video felt like a carefully constructed piece of art. Her music, her visuals, her personality, everything about her felt larger than life. Songs like Bad Romance and Telephone weren't just hits, they were cultural events. Music videos became must-watch experiences again, drawing millions of views and sparking conversations across the internet. Gaga understood something early on that many artists were still figuring out. In the digital age, attention was everything, and she knew exactly how to capture it. And she helped cement a sound that defined the early 2010s, and that effort won her the Video of the Year at the VMAs for Bad Romance. Her sound was electropop, synth-heavy, high-energy, futuristic. Pop music had fully embraced the club. This wasn't just background music anymore. It was designed for movement, for nightlife, for massive crowds. The influence of electronic production techniques became impossible to ignore. And soon, nearly every major pop release carried that same polished, high-energy sound. Then came Katy Perry. Her 2010 album Teenage Dream didn't just succeed, it made history. 5 #1 singles, a feat only previously achieved by Michael Jackson. But what made Katy Perry so effective wasn't just the numbers, it was consistency. Every song felt like it was engineered to be a hit. Catchy hooks, bright production, and lyrics that were just easy to connect with. Her music was bright, colorful, and built for mass appeal. The perfect soundtrack to a generation growing up online. Songs like California Girls, Firework, and Teenage Dream weren't just chart toppers. They became defining anthems of the era. They played everywhere, on the radio, in stores, at parties, and across social media platforms that were just beginning to shape the culture in real time. Katy Perry represented something important about early 2010s pop. The idea that a perfectly crafted song could dominate every corner of the cultural landscape. And then, there was a teenager from YouTube. Justin Bieber wasn't discovered in the traditional sense. He was found. Uploaded videos, built an audience, created a fan base before the industry even caught up. His early covers, recorded casually and uploaded online, began to gain traction, not because of a marketing campaign, but because people genuinely connected with them. Viewers shared his videos, commented, subscribed, and slowly, organically, his audience grew. By the time industry professionals noticed him, he already had something incredibly valuable: a loyal fan base. By 2010, he wasn't just a rising star, he was a full-blown phenomenon. He won AMA's Artist of the Year at 16 years old. And more importantly, he proved something revolutionary. You didn't need the industry to become famous anymore. And for the first time, artists could build careers from the ground up, using platforms that were accessible to anyone. His music video for Baby became the most viewed video in YouTube history on July 16, 2010, surpassing Lady Gaga's Bad Romance, reaching over 246 million views at the time. This shift would go on to define the entire decade, opening the door for countless creators who followed in his footsteps. Meanwhile, the Black Eyed Peas were dominating the charts worldwide. Songs like I Got a Feelin' blurred the lines between pop, hip-hop, and EDM. But beyond just their sound, they represented something bigger: the globalization of pop music. Their songs weren't just hits in one country, they were played everywhere, crossing borders and languages with ease. Tracks like Boom Boom Pow and Again, I Got a Feeling became universal party anthems, played at events, clubs, and celebrations across the world. And that fusion would become one of the defining characteristics of the decade, that genres were no longer rigid categories, they were starting points. Artists began to experiment more freely, blending influences and creating songs that felt new, exciting, and impossible to categorize. And as the decade moved forward, the blending of styles would only accelerate. Though it came out in 2008, Taylor Swift did end up winning the Grammy for Album of the Year for Fearless. Songs like Love Story, You Belong With Me, and White Horse, these songs became massive country pop crossover hits, completely dominating the radio charts and cementing her status as a global superstar. 2010 also saw Drake release his highly anticipated debut studio album, Thank Me Later, on June 15th. Popular songs on this album became Over, Find Your Love, and Fancy. And before we move on to 2011, I have to get to some of these other absolute banger songs that were released in 2010. Taio Cruz released Break Your Heart, Rihanna released Rude Boy, B.O.B. and Bruno Mars released Nothing on You, Usher and will.i.am had OMG, Eminem came out with Not Afraid, and then also collaborated with Rihanna to come out with Love the Way You Lie, which dominated the charts on a #1 run for 7 weeks. And there's one name I haven't said yet that it's impossible not to think of when you think of 2010, and that's Kesha. She debuted with TikTok, Your Love Is My Drug, and We Are Who We Are, which set the stage for parties all around the country, dominated every club in America. But around 2011, something shifted. One of the biggest changes during this time was who got to be in the spotlight. For decades, the producers had been the architects behind the scenes. They shaped the sound, they built the tracks, they crafted the hits, but their names weren't always front and center. That changed in the early 2010s. Suddenly, producers weren't just collaborators, they were headliners. Names like David Guetta, Calvin Harris, and Avicii, rest in peace, weren't just appearing in the credits anymore. They were on billboards, on the festival posters, on the main stage, and their influence was impossible to ignore. David Guetta, for example, helped bridge the gap between EDM and mainstream pop by collaborating with artists like Rihanna, Usher, and Sia. Calvin Harris wasn't just producing hits, he was releasing them under his own name, turning himself into a global pop figure. And Avicii, with tracks like Levels and later Wake Me Up, showed that electronic music could be emotional, melodic, and deeply human. And in the middle of all this change, there was one artist who seemed to move effortlessly through it all: Rihanna. And what made Rihanna so unique during this era was her ability to adapt without losing her identity, because she didn't just follow trends, she would absorb them, reshape them, and make them her own. She moved effortlessly between genres: pop, EDM, R&B, sometimes within the album, sometimes within the same song. Her collaboration with Calvin Harris for We Found Love perfectly captured the spirit of the EDM explosion. The track combined emotional storytelling with a powerful euphoric drop, creating something that both felt intimate and massive at the same time, and it dominated the charts around the world. But more importantly, it defined a moment. Rihanna wasn't just participating in the EDM era, she was helping to shape it, and her ability to evolve, to stay relevant without ever feeling forced, is what made her one of the most important pop figures of the decade. Now remember I said earlier the polished, radio-friendly pop of the late 2000s was still there? Perhaps that came from nobody better than maybe the biggest hitmaker from the 2000s. Britney Spears made a huge comeback, starting off January with a huge hit single, Hold It Against Me. Lady Gaga took all her momentum from 2010, carried that right into February with Born This Way, debuted at #1 and took over instantly. March saw Katy Perry take the mountaintop right back, as she was also seamlessly blending genres, as she had a smash hit with Kanye West, E.T. And I'd be absolutely crazy to not mention maybe the song of the summer that had everybody in a chokehold, Party Rock Anthem by LMFAO. Now let's take a look at the rest of the tracks we all came to know and love during 2011. Adele broke through in a huge way in January of 2011 with Somebody Like You. In February, Jennifer Lopez and Pitbull collabed to put out On the Floor, and Jessie J and B.O.B. put out Price Tag. In March, Britney Spears put out Till the World Ends, Rihanna put out S&M, and the Black Eyed Peas put out Just Can't Get Enough. In April of 2011, Lady Gaga put out The Edge of Glory, Adele put out Rolling in the Deep, Pitbull and Ne-Yo put out Give Me Everything. In May of 2011, Katy Perry put out Last Friday Night, Nicki Minaj put out Super Bass, Bruno Mars put out The Lazy Song, and Maroon 5 and Christina Aguilera put out Moves Like Jagger. In June, Demi Lovato put out Skyscraper. In July, Foster the People put out Pumped Up Kicks, Gym Class Heroes and Adam Levine put out Stereo Heart, and Rihanna put out Cheers, Drink to That. In September, One Direction made their big debut with What Makes You Beautiful, and One Republic put out Good Life. In October, Katy Perry put out The One That Got Away, Kelly Clarkson put out Mr. Know-It-All, and LMFAO put out Sexy and I Know It. In November, Kelly Clarkson put out Stronger, Adele put out Set Fire to the Rain. In December, Jessie J put out Domino, Flo Rida put out Good Feeling, and David Guetta and Nicki Minaj put out Turn Me On. Yet it was Taylor Swift who took home the AMA Artist of the Year due to overwhelming fan voting. And to put a bow on 2011, Justin Bieber dropped his debut #1 Christmas album, Under the Mistletoe. Even after a year like no other, change is constant in the music industry. Not everything was getting louder, not everything was built for the drop. Some songs were doing the exact opposite. They were pulling back, stripping things down, focusing on melody, storytelling, and emotion. Tracks like Somebody That I Used to Know by Gautier and We Are Young by Fun didn't rely on massive electronic builds or explosive drops. Instead, they leaned into unconventional song structures, raw, expressive vocals, and instrumentation that felt organic and human. And yet, they became massive hits. They dominated the radio, top charts, connected with audiences on a global scale, and what this showed, perhaps more than anything else, was that pop music was no longer confined to a single sound. There wasn't just one formula for success anymore. EDM could dominate the clubs and festivals, while indie-inspired tracks could capture the hearts on the radio. Pop was expanding, becoming more inclusive, more diverse, more unpredictable. And that unpredictability would become one of the defining characteristics of the entire decade. Now, the thing about 2012 is it had long-running #1s that blocked everybody else from hitting the chart at that spot. Somebody That I Used to Know dominated spring and summer. Call Me Maybe dominated the summer. One More Night by Maroon 5 dominated the fall. This so much shocked me to find out that they blocked all the biggest hits from Justin Bieber's Believe album from getting to #1, and all but one of Taylor Swift's Red album from getting to #1. Boyfriend peaked at #2 on the Billboard Hot 100. As Long as You Love Me with Big Sean peaked at #6 on the Billboard Hot 100, and Beauty and a Beat peaked inside the top 10, despite the fact that the music video broke the 24-hour view record for YouTube. Bieber did go on, however, to win the AMA Artist of the Year. Taylor Swift got her first #1 Hot 100 hit ever with We Are Never Getting Back Together. I Knew You Were Trouble hit the same peak as Justin Bieber's Boyfriend at #2, and 22 became a top 20 hit. Also a huge subject of conversation at the time was Justin Bieber's relationship with Selena Gomez, known as Jelena, and Taylor Swift's relationship with Harry Styles. The mainstream pop chart was introduced to Ellie Goulding with Lights, and Rihanna came on to end the year with Diamonds, which dominated. She also took home the VMA Video of the Year award for We Found Love. Now let's take a look at some of the hits we haven't mentioned yet from 2012. Nicki Minaj put out Starships, Katy Perry put out Part of Me, and The Wanted put out Glad You Came. In March of 2012, Flo Rida and Sia put out Wild Ones. In May, Usher put out Scream and Flo Rida put out Whistle. In June, Owl City and Carly Rae Jepsen put out Good Time, and Fun put out Some Nights. In July, Pink put out Blow Me One Last Kiss, and Ne-Yo put out Let Me Love You. August was known for Alicia Keys putting out Girl on Fire. In September, Kesha put out Die Young, and One Direction put out Live While We're Young. In October, One Direction again followed that up with Little Things. Adele put out Skyfall, and Swedish House Mafia put out Don't You Worry Child. To end the year, Bruno Mars put out When I Was Your Man, and will.i.am and Britney Spears put out Scream and Shout. Now going into 2013, songs weren't just hits anymore, they were moments. Moments that lived online, moments that spread across platforms, moments that people didn't just listen to, but participated in. Think about it. Gangnam Style. And the reason I included this song going into 2013 is because that is right near when it surpassed Baby as the #1 most viewed video on YouTube. And if you weren't around for it, or if you lived it, you remember, this was war online. This song didn't just top the charts, it broke the internet. It became the first video to reach 1 billion views on YouTube, but more importantly, it became a global cultural phenomenon. And suddenly, success wasn't just about charts or sales. It was about visibility, about shareability, about how easily a song could travel across the internet. Music and internet culture didn't just overlap anymore. They became inseparable. The thing about 2013 is that superstars weren't guaranteed hits. The year started off quietly in January of 2013. At #1 was a song that shouldn't have been there. Thrift Shop, a quirky, low-budget, independent track by Macklemore and Ryan Lewis. No major label machine, no traditional rollout, just a beat, a hook, and a message that felt different. And yet, it dominates week after week. And that's when the industry started to realize something. The gatekeepers are losing control. Because this song didn't come from the system, it came from the internet. And then March hits, and everything explodes out of nowhere. The Harlem Shake. Not even a traditional song, not even a traditional hit, just a 30-second drop turned into millions of videos. People in offices, classrooms, military bases, all doing the same chaotic dance. And suddenly, it's #1. Not because of radio, not because of sales, but just because the internet decided it was. And just like that, pop music changes forever. But 2013 isn't just chaos. By spring, something else starts happening. People want feeling again, and enter Pink, Just Give Me a Reason. A stripped-back emotional duet with Nate Ruess. No gimmicks, no viral dance, just heartbreak. And it connects. Because even in a viral world, emotion still wins. Then comes the summer of 2013, and one song takes over everything. Blurred Lines. It's everywhere. Radios, clubs, parties. You literally cannot escape it. It's catchy, it's controversial because of the music video, and it becomes one of the biggest songs of the decade. But here's the twist. While it dominates, something else is building underneath. A shift. A reaction. Because not everyone likes where pop music is going. And that reaction is about to change everything in August of 2013, when two of the biggest pop stars in the world return at the same time, Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. Katy Perry drops Roar, and Lady Gaga drops Applause. It's framed as a battle. Charts, fans, media, who still runs pop? And for a moment, it feels like the old system is back. Big names, big releases, big debuts, but then everything gets disrupted. The VMAs. Miley Cyrus takes the stage, and in a single performance breaks the internet. Controversy explodes, think pieces, headlines, debate, and right after that, Wrecking Ball drops. Raw, emotional, vulnerable, and it goes #1. Because now, we know attention is currency, and Miley just mastered it. Then October arrives, and with it, a voice no one saw coming. Lorde, 16 years old, minimal beat, simple melody, Royals. No big production, no flashy hook, and honestly, it just takes over. #1, week after week. But it's bigger than that, because Royals isn't just a hit, it's a statement. A rejection of everything pop had become. No luxury, no excess, no noise. And suddenly, the industry listens. Because by the end of 2013, pop sounded different. Less EDM chaos, more minimal production, more emotion, more authenticity. The loud, explosive sound of the early 2010s starts to fade, and a new era begins. Artists realize you don't need the biggest beat, you need the realest moment. Some of the other biggest hits from 2013 included Locked Out of Heaven by Bruno Mars, Started From the Bottom by Drake, Get Lucky by Daft Punk, The Monster with Eminem and Rihanna, Wake Me Up by Avicii, Radioactive by Imagine Dragons, and Mirrors by Justin Timberlake, which ended up winning Video of the Year at the VMAs. And Taylor Swift retook her crown as Artist of the Year at the AMAs. 2014 starts off with something familiar, Timber. It's loud, it's big, it's catchy. A leftover from the EDM explosion of the early 2010s. And for a moment, it feels like nothing's changed. But underneath, something is shifting. Because right behind it is a much different kind of hit. Dark Horse. Slower, darker, minimal. It doesn't explode, it pulls you in. And that subtle difference, that's the future. Then comes a song that shouldn't work. No drop, no heavy production, no complexity, just a clap and a feeling. Happy. And somehow it takes over the world, because in 2014, people don't just want energy. They want something they can feel instantly. Something simple, repeatable, something that works everywhere. On the radio, on YouTube, on social media, and happy becomes the blueprint. And then April hits, and everything slows down. All of me. A piano, a voice, a message. John Legend. That's it. And it goes number one. Because after years of noise, people are craving something real again. May of 2014, 2 songs drop at almost the same time. Fancy and Problem. And just like that, a new generation takes over. Short hooks, instant identity, built for replay. And these aren't just songs, they're moments engineered to stick. But while the charts are shifting, there's another force dominating 2014. Not through viral hits, not through gimmicks, but through something else entirely. Loyalty. One Direction. By 2014, they're not just a boy band anymore. They're a global phenomenon selling out stadiums across the world. Millions of fans, unmatched engagement. And in November, they released 4. With songs like Steal My Girl and Night Changes. And here's what's interesting. They're not chasing trends, they're not going EDM, they're not going minimal, they are refining their own sound. Classic pop, guitar-driven, timeless. And while they're not always dominating the Hot 100, which, believe me, surprised me more than anyone, they're dominating something bigger, the culture. Because in a year where hits come and go, One Direction builds something that lasts. A fan base that doesn't just listen, they show up. And that's a completely different kind of power. And all of this culminated with them winning the AMA's Artist of the Year. By summer, the formula is clear. Catchy, simple, viral. Rude takes over. A laid-back, unexpected hit. Proof that in 2014, anyone can win, if the song connects. Then August happens. Taylor Swift releases Shake It Off, and everything changes. This isn't just a hit, it's a reinvention. She fully steps into pop from country and takes control of the narrative, because now, pop isn't just about music, it's about storytelling. Then comes All About That Bass. Different, playful, viral. Because now the audience wants more than perfection. They want personality, something real, something shareable. In November, Taylor Swift again, blank space. And then this is where the strategy becomes obvious. She turns headlines into lyrics, criticism into content, and wins again. And then right at the end of the year, Uptown Funk, perfectly crafted, perfectly timed, song built to last, and it signals what's next. Because by 2015, hits just won't happen. They'll be engineered. But let's continue to look down this track list for 2014. You have Counting Stars in January by OneRepublic, which was a massive global smash. In March, Jason Derulo and 2 Chainz put out Talk Dirty. In April, Calvin Harris put out Summer. In May, Nico and Vince put out Am I Wrong? In June, Sam Smith broke out with Stay With Me. Charlie XCX had Boom Clap. Maroon 5 had Maps. Nicki Minaj went so viral with her video for Anaconda. Ariana Grande and Zedd also had Break Free. Nick Jonas put out Jealous. Ariana Grande and The Weeknd collabed for Love Me Harder. And Ed Sheeran ends the year with a slow burn of Thinking Out Loud. I mean, do they make decades like this anymore? 2015 begins, and one song is already impossible to escape. Uptown Funk. Mark Ronson and Bruno Mars didn't just have a hit, they had a monster. This song dominated radios, clubs, weddings, grocery stores, literally everywhere. 14 weeks at number one on the Billboard Hot 100. And just like that, 2015 starts with a retro funk explosion that feels timeless. But while Uptown Funk is holding the crown, another artist is quietly becoming unstoppable. Ed Sheeran, no longer behind the scenes writing for One Direction. Thinking Out Loud isn't just a fast rise, it's a slow burn. Week after week, it climbs until it becomes one of the biggest songs in the world. Romantic, simple, universal, and it proves something important about 2015. Not every hit needed shock value. Some just need connection. And then there's one artist who just completely owns the year, Taylor Swift. After leaving country behind in 2014 with 1989, 2015 became her victory lap. Blank Space dominated early in the year still, Style keeps the momentum going, and then Bad Blood drops with Kendrick Lamar, and everything explodes. The music video isn't just a video, it's an event. Celebrities were everywhere, social media is in a frenzy, massive hype. And it works. Taylor isn't just making hits, she's controlling the conversation. By 2015, she's not just a pop star, she's the center of pop culture. And while Taylor rules the spotlight, another artist is rising in the shadows, The Weeknd. At the start of the year, he's still somewhat mysterious, but that doesn't last long. Earned It from 50 Shades of Grey introduces him into the mainstream audience. Then comes The Hills. Dark, gritty, completely different from anything else on the radio, and somehow it goes number one. And then he does it right again with Can't Feel My Face. Now he's not just alternative or R&B, he's a full-on pop superstar. By the end of 2015, The Weeknd has done the impossible. He has made moody, haunting music dominate mainstream pop. And then No Story comes bigger in 2015 than this one. Justin Bieber's redemption arc. Just a few years earlier, his career was surrounded by controversy, arrests, headlines, public backlash, and it feels like his moment might be coming to an end. And then everything changes with Where Are You Now? It featured Skrillex and Diplo. It's different, it's experimental, it's fresh, and people start paying attention again. But what comes out next is what changes everything. What Do You Mean? Number one debut. Then Sorry, massive global smash. Then Love Yourself, another number one. 3 huge hits, back to back to back. Justin Bieber doesn't just come back, he takes over. And suddenly the narrative flips. 2015 becomes the year of one of the greatest comeback stories in pop history. And just when it feels like the year couldn't get any bigger, November happens. Adele returns. Hello. No gimmicks, no features, no trends, just a piano and a voice. Within days, it's everywhere. The song breaks records, the video breaks records, and then the album 25 drops. In fact, it was this song that blocked Sorry from getting to number one for quite some time. It sells over 3 million copies in 1 week in the US alone. In the streaming era, that kind of number feels impossible. But Adele proves something no one expected. Even in a world full of playlists and viral hits, a true superstar can still stop time. 2015 is also the year pop truly goes global. Lean On by Major Lazer and DJ Snake becomes one of the most streamed songs ever. And it doesn't even sound like traditionally American pop. And that's the point. Meanwhile, there's Omi's Cheerleader remix. It becomes number one worldwide, a song from Jamaica, remixed into a global smash. And then there's Watch Me Whip, Watch Me Nay Nay by Salento, a viral track that spreads through the internet like wildfire. 2015 proves that hits just don't come from the radio anymore. They come from YouTube, memes, and the internet. And while the year is filled with huge male artists, female pop stars are still dominating in their own way. Ellie Goulding's Love Me Like You Do becomes one of the biggest pop stars of the year. Meghan Trainor continues her run with Lips Are Movin' and more retro-inspired pop. Selena Gomez completely reinvents her sound with Good For You and Same Old Love. 2015 isn't just competitive, it's crowded with stars fighting for the top. The award shows reflected the chaos and excitement. Taylor Swift dominates the VMAs and Justin Bieber cries on stage in one of the most passionate performances ever. The Weeknd racks up wins, and the industry begins fully embracing streaming numbers. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, feuds, relationships, headlines keep fans locked in. Taylor versus Katy Perry is still a topic. Justin's image transformation is constantly discussed, and every release feels like a moment. In 2015, music isn't just something you listen to, it's something you follow. But still, one of the bigger storylines of 2015 belongs again to One Direction. At the start of the year, they're still unstoppable, sold-out tours, global fame, massive fan base, but in March, Zayn Malik leaves the band. And that changes everything because for the first time, One Direction felt a little vulnerable. The internet explodes, fans are devastated, and suddenly the future is uncertain. But instead of slowing down, they push forward through their final era. They return with new music and a fifth studio album, Drag Me Down drops, and it's different. More mature, more emotional, less boy band, more band. And their fifth and final studio album comes out, for now at least, Made in the AM. And it feels like a goodbye, even though at the time no one says it out loud. Songs like Perfect, History carry a massive sense of reflection. They're not just making hits anymore, they're telling their story. Shortly after, the band announces a hiatus. And just like that, one of the biggest pop groups in the world steps away at their peak. They cement that by winning back-to-back Artist of the Year at the AMAs and finishing where they started, giving their final performance on The X Factor. And remember when I asked about the year last year in 2014 if they make decades like this anymore and years like this anymore? When you hear some of these other songs that people might have forgotten about that I'm about to list out, for me, 2015 is easily the best year of this pop decade. January starts with 4 or 5 Seconds with Rihanna. February starts with Sugar by Maroon 5 and Take Me to Church by Hozier. March 2015, two of the biggest songs of the year drop in Want to Want Me by Jason Derulo and See You Again with Wiz Khalifa and Charlie Puth. In April, David Guetta drops Hey Mama with BB Rexa and Nicki Minaj. In May, the world is introduced to Fetty Wap, who drops Trap Queen, and Maroon 5 puts out This Summer's Gonna Hurt. Demi Lovato puts out Cool for the Summer. Rachel Platten puts out Fight Song. Taylor Swift puts out Wildest Dreams. Drake puts out Hotline Bling. Ellie Goulding puts out On My Mind. Elle King puts out X's and O's. And in December, Shawn Mendes drops Stitches and Daya drops Hideaway. This has to be the year I come back to most from this decade. 2015 wasn't just another year in pop music. You could argue it's one of the most influential and most popular years of pop music since the new millennium. At the start of 2016, something felt different. The biggest songs aren't loud anymore, they're vibes. Sorry by Justin Bieber still everywhere, minimal, tropical, smooth. It doesn't hit hard, it floats. And that becomes the blueprint. Artists begin chasing atmosphere over intensity. And then comes Work by Rihanna and Drake. Laid back, repetitive, almost hypnotic, and somehow dominates the charts. Pop music in 2016 isn't about perfection anymore, it's about the feeling. If 2015 had multiple stars battling for control, which it did, 2016 had one name at the center, Drake. That album Views came out and it was everywhere. But it's one song that changes everything. One Dance. Dancehall inspired, global, effortless. It becomes one of the most streamed songs ever. Weeks at number 1, and suddenly Drake is unstoppable. Out of nowhere though, a duo takes over 2016. The Chainsmokers. It starts with Don't Let Me Down, then Closer. featuring Halsey, and this changes everything. The song that was originally battling between Halsey and Camila Cabello chose the right person, I believe, to do this one, because Closer didn't just go number one, it stayed there for 12 weeks. Minimal production, conversational lyrics, and it's casual, and yet it defines the year. The Chainsmokers proved something massive. You don't need the powerhouse vocals or those huge drops anymore. You just need a moment that people connect with. And by the time we get to April, Queen Bee drops Lemonade. Not just an album, it's a film, it's a statement, a cultural movement. You want to go through songs like Formation, Sorry, aren't just hits. They're conversations about identity, about relationships, about power. 2016, Beyonce didn't just release music, she really defines the moment. And then we have another shift coming from Rihanna. Her album Anti arrives, and it's unexpected because it's not the obvious radio formula, not chasing trends. Instead, it's very raw, experimental, personal, and then comes my personal favorite song on the track, Needed Me. Cold, confident, unapologetic, and it becomes one of her biggest hits ever. And Rihanna proves that she doesn't need to follow the pop trends, she creates them. And while the veterans evolve, the next generation levels up. Ariana Grande drops Dangerous Woman and Into You, pop perfection. Meanwhile, Selena Gomez continues her streak with Hands to Myself, minimal, whispery, addictive. And artists are rising like Shawn Mendes, who put out Stitches like we said from last year, and Daya, Sit Still Look Pretty. They begin taking their place in the spotlight. And as we mentioned in the previous one of the biggest presences of the early 2010s is missing. One Direction is officially on hiatus. And you can feel it, because no massive group singles dominate radio. No global fan frenzy at the same level. Instead, the members begin going solo. And this is when Zayn Malik releases Pillow Talk, a darker, much more mature sound, a clear break from the past. And 2016 becomes the year where the boy band era officially fades and individual artistry takes over. 2016 is also the year where the internet fully takes control. Songs just don't become hits, they become memes. One Dance dominates streaming, Closer dominates playlists, and tracks rise faster than ever before. The charts are no longer just radio driven, they're internet driven. If you had one word to define 2016, I guess you'd have to go with minimal. Softer production, fewer instruments, more space. It's almost like they're speaking directly to you. It's not about being the loudest anymore, it's about being the most relatable. But I'd be remiss if I didn't go down the rest of the list of the best tracks from 2016. In February, Work From Home by Fifth Harmony and Ty Dolla $ign came out. 7 Years also came out by Lucas Graham. In March, we had No by Meghan Trainor. In April, we had Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake. In May, we had This Is What You Came For with Calvin Harris and Rihanna. In June, we had Cheap Thrills with Sia and Sean Paul. We had Ride by 21 Pilots. In July, Cold Water by Major Lazer and Justin Bieber came out. Justin also followed that up in August with a track with DJ Snake called Let Me Love You. In September, Starboy by The Weeknd and Daft Punk came out. Shawn Mendes also dropped Treat You Better. In October, we had 24 Karat Magic by Bruno Mars and Say You Won't Let Go by James Arthur. In November, we got Black Beatles by Ray Drummers and Gucci Mane. Also, we got Rockabye by Clean Bandit, Sean Paul and Anne-Marie. And in December, we had Paris by the Chainsmokers and I Feel It Comin' with The Weeknd and Daft Punk. Some of the major accolades from 2016 include Artist of the Year at the AMAs, which was Ariana Grande, and the VMA Video of the Year went to Beyonce for Formation. There was also another song in 2016 that gained prominence from SoundCloud, which would tell a major part of the latter half of the 2010s. It was by Post Malone, and it was called White Iverson. It did so well that he got to open the Purpose Tour with Justin Bieber. And in the latter half of the decade, it was really Post Malone and Drake who led the way with genreless music. So it was really hard to say whether or not they were rap or pop, because they did own the pop charts too. The last artist I'm going to bring up from 2016 that gained prominence was Billie Eilish. She released a track originally in 2015 called Ocean Eyes and then re-released it in 2016. The track did fairly well, but it really served as a launching point to how she would dominate some of the latter part of the decade. 2017 was really the year pop went global, and listeners themselves became more curious. They were more open to different sounds, languages, and styles from around the world. For the first time in history, a song didn't need to be in English to dominate the charts, and that realization changed everything. But to go back to the start of 2017, there's big hits, and then there was Shape of You by Ed Sheeran. It didn't just climb the charts, it took them hostage. Week after week, month by month, no matter what dropped, nothing could replace it. It blended pop, dancehall, tropical vibes, and perfectly engineered for streaming playlists. And that's what 2017 was about, streaming supremacy. This wasn't radio controlling hits anymore. This was the algorithm. And right alongside it, here we go. Despacito by Luis Fonsi and Daddy Yankee, with a remix from Justin Bieber, a Spanish language song dominating the entire world, tying the all-time Billboard record. 2017 wasn't just global, it was literally borderless. Now I want to give Daddy Yankee and Luis Fonsi some credit. This song was a #1 hit before Justin Bieber even got it. But when Bieber got to it, that is what really took it to the next level. There was also another huge Latin hit by J Balvin and Willie William called Mi Gente. I wanted to throw that one in there too because that song I remember being a summer smash. So while some of these artists were dominating with singles, others came back to redefine themselves. Taylor Swift disappeared, only to return with Look What You Made Me Do. Much darker, sharper, calculated, not just a song, definitely a statement, and it was a complete image reset. Meanwhile, Katy Perry leaned into purposeful pop with Chained to the Rhythm, and Miley Cyrus stripped everything back with Malibu. 2017 was a year of transformation. Not everyone chased the same sound because there was no single sound to chase anymore. If we go back to the year 2010, it was loud, but if we cut to 2017, it was vibes. Moody, atmospheric, emotional. Leading that wave was Post Malone with Rockstar, a song that felt almost effortless. It had no big chorus, no explosive drop. It was just fun, but it worked. Then came Humble by Kendrick Lamar, minimal beat, maximum presence, and Bodak Yellow by Cardi B. Another breakout movement that once again proved you did not need the traditional machine, you just needed momentum. Speaking about momentum, Justin Bieber kept it going year after year after year. This year releasing I'm the One with DJ Khaled, and that felt like a social media event because DJ Khaled, for those who don't know, was heavily on Snapchat at the time. Speaking of Justin Bieber, Selena Gomez and Kygo teamed up to drop It Ain't Me, which lived on playlists for months. Now the weird thing about this is that there was a rekindling of their relationship on and off between 2017 and 2018, despite the year before in 2016, they had a huge Instagram backlash where Justin Bieber threatened to end up deleting or deactivating his Instagram account. Like I said, this really all took place over the course of 3 years, so I just decided to throw it in the middle. But it's not entirely done. Charlie Puth ended up releasing Attention this year. However, the year before, him and Selena Gomez collabed on a song called We Don't Talk Anymore, in which Charlie Puth went on stage and said things about Justin Bieber that I can't repeat. The Weeknd also showed he was a star boy when he dated Selena Gomez in 2017 too, but honestly, this entire drama could use a whole video in itself. And now we go from petty problems to real problems. 2017 had a moment that stopped time. The Manchester Arena bombing. This totally shocked the music world, where at a concert for Ariana Grande, music is meant to be something that brings people together, but it was suddenly at the center of tragedy. But what followed was unity. Artists came together, fans came together, and music became something more than the charts again. In March of 2017, Harry Styles also made his self-titled album debut with a now famous song, Sign of the Times. Interestingly enough, this song wasn't seen as a major radio pop hit at the time. This song really took time to grow and is still being played as one of his encore songs on his tour to this day. But at the time, people were really questioning Harry Styles' solo career and where he was going. Now let's go down some of the the rest of the major hits from this year that we haven't covered. In January, Ed Sheeran followed up Shape of You by releasing Castle on the Hill. In February, the Chainsmokers and Coldplay came out with Something Just Like This. In March, Zedd and Alessia Cara teamed up to make Stay. In June, DJ Khaled released Wild Thoughts with Rihanna and Bryson Tiller. In July, Demi Lovato put out Sorry Not Sorry, and Calvin Harris, Pharrell Williams, Katy Perry, and Big Sean put out the song called Feels. In August, Justin Bieber released his final single of the year titled Friends with Blood Pop. In September, Maroon 5 and SZA teamed up for What Lovers Do. In October, Ed Sheeran's final hit of Divide came with Perfect, and Camila Cabello and Young Thug put out Havana. In November, Dua Lipa was made famous to the world with her New Rules. Selena Gomez and Marshmello put out Wolves. Taylor Swift, Ed Sheeran, and Future released Endgame, and Migos, Nicki Minaj, and Cardi B put out Motorsport. And from what I'm reading, this song was blocked from getting to number one because of I'm the One by Justin Bieber and DJ Khaled, but Unforgettable by French Montana and Sway Lee was a song that truly you couldn't escape. I was working in radio in 2017 and it was played nonstop. And I get it, as we go year by year, radio mattered a lot less than it did the year before. So if 2017 proved that streaming mattered, 2018 proved that it was everything. No song represented that better than God's Plan by Drake. It dropped and instantly dominated. There was no slow build, no waiting, just impact. And the biggest thing with this song that I think made it as viral as it did, the music video. Drake giving away the money for the music video as the music video turned it not only into just a hit, but it really became a moment. And then came In My Feelings. Not just a song, a challenge. A viral wave that flooded the internet. In 2018, songs didn't just chart, they had to move the culture. Because as we saw earlier in the decade, pop used to have boundaries, but 2018 was huge in erasing them too. Hip-hop, Latin, R&B, pop, they kept that trend moving from the previous years and made it even bigger. And at the center of all of it was Havana by Camila Cabello, because this song did come out the year before, but this was really when it took off. It was warm, rhythmic, undeniable, and then I Like It by Cardi B, Bad Bunny, and J Balvin came out. 3 artists, 2 languages, 1 massive hit. And let's not forget Girls Like You by Maroon 5 and Cardi B, because that was a pop band collaborating with a rap superstar. So worlds were just colliding all over the place. Now when I think about 2018, this is what I think of. It wasn't about being perfect, it was about being real. Leading that movement was Ariana Grande. After a period of unimaginable tragedy, she returned with No Tears Left to Cry, a song that felt emotional but uplifting. And then later, Thank You Next. Raw, honest, personal, not just a breakup song, but a look inside the romance life of a superstar. And the biggest part, being willingly. Now, if you want to talk about raw superstars, Billie Eilish and Khalid collaborated to put out Lovely. And my favorite part of this is if you go to the YouTube video, it says, Billie at 17, famous. Me at 17, liking my own comment. And let's also show some love to Khalid, whose first big hit was Location in 2016, but it peaked at 16 on the US Billboard Hot 100, which is why it didn't make it there. But this is some heavy foreshadowing for these soon-to-be megastars. Introductions seem to be a theme in 2018, with case in point being Lucid Dreams by Juice WRLD, a song that started online that turned into a global hit. R.I.P. And then there was Sicko Mode by Travis Scott, which was unpredictable, constantly changing, and perfect for replay culture. And I'm sure that's going to come up next year too, because I remember it being huge into the following year. And of course, This Is America by Childish Gambino. A song, a video, a statement. It didn't just go viral. It sparked conversation, debate, analysis, because in 2018, music wasn't just entertainment, it was commentary. Some of the other biggest hits of the year include Zedd, Maren Morris, and Gray putting out The Middle, Kendrick Lamar and SZA collab to put out All the Stars. In March, Lil Dicky collaborated with Chris Brown to put out Freaky Friday. In April, Meant to Be dropped with BB Rexa and Florida Georgia Line. In June 2018, Post Malone put out Better Now. In July 2018, Benny Blanco, Halsey, and Khalid put out Eastside. In September 2018, Natural came out with Imagine Dragons. In October, Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper came out with Shallow. Halsey also put out Without Me. Post Malone and Sway Lee collaborated to put out Sunflower. And Post Malone also followed it up in December by putting out Wow. And I'm sure we'll see more of this going into the following year, but technically it did drop in 2018. Ariana Grande put out 7 Rings. And lastly, my personal favorite song of the year, which was Marshmello and Bastille, they put out Happier. Taylor Swift ended up taking home the AMA Artist of the Year, and Havana won for Video of the Year at the VMAs with Camila Cabello. The final year of the decade started with the most unlikely hit ever. It was a song that when it got put out wasn't even being taken seriously at first. Old Town Road by Lil Nas X. A country trap song born on the internet, powered by memes. At first, it looked like a total joke, but then it went completely viral for all the right reasons, and it hit the charts. And then it got removed from the country charts, which sparked debate, controversy, and attention all over the place. And then it came back stronger than ever with a remix featuring Billy Ray Cyrus, and suddenly there was no stopping it. Week after week after week, Old Town Road stayed at number 1, breaking the all-time record. Not just a hit, a phenomenon, and it was the defining moment of 2019. It didn't come from the industry, it came from the internet. Which, if we went back to the start of the decade, it truly went full circle. While one song dominated the world, a new sound was quietly taking over. Softer, darker, more emotional. Leading that wave was Billie Eilish with Bad Guy. Minimal production, whispered vocals, unconventional structure, everything about it broke the rules. And that's exactly why it worked. It didn't sound like pop music used to. It sounded like what pop music was becoming. At the same time, Post Malone continued his run with Circles. Melodic, moody, and endlessly replayable. 2019 wasn't necessarily loud, but it was addictive. If 2018 introduced vulnerability, 2019 leaned all the way into it, and nobody represented that more with Ariana Grande. What did I say? With 7 Rings. A flex anthem on the surface, but part of a much deeper era. Raw, direct, and personal. Even pop radio started to feel more like a diary. By 2019, pop was not just global. It was literally borderless. Songs could come out from anywhere and dominate everywhere. Señorita by Shawn Mendes and Camila Cabello became an international smash. Someone You Loved by Lewis Capaldi proved emotional ballads could still rule streaming, and pop continued blending with hip-hop, Latin, indie, really everything at once. There was no lanes anymore, only attention. In 2019, the formula was pretty clear. If it spread online, it could take over the world. Truth Hurts by Lizzo wasn't even new, but went viral years later and became a number 1 hit. Let that sink in. Release dates didn't matter anymore. Trends didn't matter. All that mattered was, did enough people share it to where an algorithm could catch fire? Alright, now let's wrap up the last year of 2019. Sucker by the Jonas Brothers came out in February. Break Up With Your Girlfriend 'Cause I'm Bored also came out in February by Ariana Grande. Please Me by Cardi B and Bruno Mars came out in March. In April, Taylor Swift and Brendan Urie put out Me. In May, Ed Sheeran and Justin Bieber collaborated to put out I Don't Care. In June, Taylor Swift came out with You Need to Calm Down. July saw Post Malone and Young Thug team up to put out Goodbyes. Miley Cyrus put out Slide Away in August. Dua Lipa put out Don't Start Now in September. In October 2019, you could argue Selena Gomez put out her most emotional song ever called Lose You to Love Me. November saw Maroon 5 wrap up the decade with Memories, and one that the internet still talks about today, Dance Monkey by Tones and I. And December saw 2 more great songs, Adore You by Harry Styles and Everything I Wanted by Billie Eilish. You could argue 2019 was really the start of when Taylor Swift took on that mother identity role, as she swept the AMAs not only for Artist of the Year, but Artist of the Decade. Now, while there's so many artists who could have been eligible for that award, personally, my Artist of the Decade I would have given it to would have been Justin Bieber. But Taylor's certainly a worthy choice. The VMAs saw her also win You Need to Calm Down for the Video of the Year. The VMAs also did put out their own Artist of the Year, which was Ariana Grande. The 2010s were a decade of disruption. A time when everything changed and nothing stayed the same for long. But out of that chaos truly came a new kind of pop music. It was more diverse, more global, more connected, A soundtrack not just to a generation, but to a world that was becoming more connected literally by the day. And as we moved on into the 2020s, one question remained. If the 2010s redefined pop music, what would come next? Better or worse? And that's a question only you can answer. Leave a comment below and let me know. I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe.